It is going to be very important to understand when consulting any astrologer that every astrologer is going to have a totally unique way of interpreting astrological charts as well as delivering an astrology reading. So there are so many different branches of astrology. I mean, there is mundane astrology, evolutionary astrology, there's astrology to, just focus on money, there's astrology even for the weather and all these sorts of things. But, although there's going to be all these different branches of astrology with so many astrologers within them, each astrologer is going to have their each unique philosophy and ontology and way of breaking down and understanding reality. And because astrology is so spiritual and fundamental and esoteric, I mean, that's going to be a huge part of how the astrologer interprets these planetary forces and how we use them in a chart reading. So I'm going to briefly explain my own unique flavor of astrology, which is going to be tied into my ontology as well as the branches of astrology that I study under. The branches of astrology that I study under is going to be a combination of evolutionary, shamanic, and esoteric astrology. Okay, I don't know if that means a lot to you, but what it does say is, one thing is I see each planet as a unique personality. My own ontology is that actually everything is personality. You can say that everything is made out of consciousness, and because that consciousness is conscious of itself, there is indeed personalities, because we live in a reality where nature has fragmented itself into all of these innumerable bits and pieces, and because each bit and piece is formed out of consciousness and is conscious of itself and of other bits and pieces of consciousness, everything is personality. Okay, so the way I understand astrology is that each of us sort of has all of these sub-personalities that make up our greater personality. And this is can be seen on so many different levels. The entire human nature has these different sub-personalities. And then entirely nature itself has these different sub-personalities. So these planetary positions reveal to us these fundamental sub-personalities and energies, okay, and flavors that are part of the dance and the exchange that make up everything. I mean, you can say that, light can be divided into 3 fundamental colors that can be divided into innumerable colors. It is like this way in consciousness as well. So we are made out of the planets. We are formed out of this earth. We're also formed out of the sun, which impregnates this earth with consciousness, and then we are born of it. But we don't think so much of the other planets being tied in with ourselves as well. But because there are these massive hunks of electromagnetic force and energy rotating around the earth as well, they play just as much into our being and our transforming and our dancing as does the seasons. Okay, so this is Rasa-Lila healing, and Rasa-Lila means the divine dance. This is how I see the spinning and the rotating of all these objects in the celestial sky, is that we're all dancing. Okay, when we think of the seasons rotating around and around, we can think of it as a sort of cold mechanical cog that's just eternally spinning, all right? And this is kind of an old paradigm way of seeing this. It's just everything's just turning around and turning around. Therefore, everything is totally deterministic. You can figure out when something's going to be lined up with something else because everything's this mechanical cog. And that's the old way of seeing astrology during like the medieval ages and stuff. Earlier, it was not that way. Shamanic astrology sees everything as personality. The ancients saw everything as personality. So it was not mechanical, okay? And this means that rather than everything just rotating around and is therefore deterministic and, predictable, it means that everything is fluidly moving in divine music, okay? And this is like the sound of the spheres that Pythagoras was renowned for. Okay, so there is these unique personalities, these unique vibrations, this unique music, okay? And there is the macrocosm that is going on, that is, this big dance, this big song that's playing out in our universe. And, even the universe suggests that our universe is just one verse of a greater song that is an even bigger macrocosm. Okay, so this is how the entire creation works. You go within and without, you find consciousness, you find this dance, and the secret and the joy and the beauty of all this is that it is all interconnected. Therefore, our little dance in our microcosm, in our personal lives, with our friends and our family members, is reflected and is inherently connected to the greater dance of the macrocosm between these planetary forces, between the stars, between the heavenly bodies that are personalities, that are the devas, the angels, okay? So we are connected to them, and in many ways we are one with them, okay? And this is the beauty of seeing things from this perspective that I do see things from, and I do use as the fundamental basis of my chart interpretation. Now, I don't always get into that and start spilling the beans on all my personal philosophical beliefs in a chart reading. That's not what a chart reading is about. However, this video is about understanding me so you can understand what my chart readings are like. Now, when it comes to the more technical side of interpreting charts, you know, as I said, there's all these different sub-personalities within us, so we can sort of break apart our personality and start seeing these different personalities, which is great for us because we are able to dissect and rationalize and really objectively see how these different bits and pieces of ourselves work, how they work together, how they can work with tension, all right? And then when we can familiarize ourselves with these different bits and pieces and see how to integrate them together, that's how we can create a harmonious, wholesomely integrated person where we can really set out to do our maximum potential, okay? And that leads me to the next thing is, where does past and future get tied into my chart readings? Because I do look a lot into the past in chart readings, and I do also look into the future. But how I look into the past and future may be considerably different than many other astrologers, because your past isn't something that is really just time related. You know, the past is in linear time, is what's happened before, and the future is what's going to happen. That's getting too much into that mechanical viewpoint of we're going to see what's going to happen in the future. Life is much more fluid, okay, than that. So when we're looking into the past, we're looking into what has conditioned us into being what we are now. So we do have to look into the past, because sometimes how we have become conditioned is not totally true and aligned with who we actually are in all of our full beauty and splendor, all right? So getting into the future then means we are actualizing and we are becoming more of, and we are becoming more wholesome and integrated and aligned with who we truly are, okay? Therefore, the past, the present, and the future are actually all here. Okay, the future is here. We are working at getting towards it, and what we are working at getting towards is already here. It is our self. It is our potential, our creative potential, our spiritual potential, our potential to be happy and fulfilled in this world, which is directly tied to the service that we are giving back to this world. We didn't just incarnate here on Earth for shits and giggles and to enjoy, you know, the different foods and everything that is, you know, that's a part of the human experience. But if we want to be the most fulfilled, and I assume when most people consult me for an astrology reading, we're looking at ways to become more fulfilled, to become more happy, to become more peaceful and harmonious, and to actually achieve the things that we desire in our hearts to achieve. To become more fulfilled, we have to give back our gifts. We have to give back to nature what nature has given us. And this is what creates a feedback loop that allows us to eternally ascend up this spiral. See, it's not actually a mechanical circle. Around, around, around we go. Here's winter, here's summer, here's winter, here's summer. It's always the same, it's always the same. This is not how life actually works. It is a spiral. Even when we study the actual movement of the sun is not like a pivot that everything just mechanically revolves around. The sun is moving around this other huge spiral, all right? Everything's actually spiraling and spiraling. Nothing's actually ever remains the same. If we are doing the work, if we are aspiring to get towards our fullest potential, all right? So again, we're looking into the past. We're seeing what has potentially conditioned us into being not what we actually are. That means in my chart readings, I do spend a lot of time looking at childhood wounds. I spend a lot of time looking at the planetary. It's actually considered a centaur planet, sometimes considered an asteroid, Chiron, that has to do with our childhood wounds. It's called the Wounded Healer planet. This planetary body, which is crucial for my readings, shows how we have become wounded in the past and how that is tied to our capability to be compassionate, charitable beings that through going through pain, we can empathize with others who go through pain, which can lead us to becoming healers, to heal others who are going through similar painful experiences. So that's a crucial part of my readings. Each of us has an individual and unique way of doing that, all right? I also focus a lot on the Black Moon Lilith. And Black Moon Lilith is a part of our self that has become oppressed, repressed, trampled upon, okay, dismissed, shamed in the past, all right? And this is going to start looking at how we're coming out of an old paradigm and shifting into a new paradigm. And as we are getting into our own soul potential, getting into our own truth and our capability, we are actually transmuting and healing the past and changing the old paradigm into the new paradigm. The old paradigm was a male-dominant, authoritative, dog-eat-dog, fight-to-survive type of mentality. And we're moving into a paradigm where the masculine and the feminine are balanced, where we can have trust and faith in our fellow mankind, where we can have trust and faith in nature to carry and embrace us so that we don't always feel like we're on the brink of apocalypse. But anyways, we look back into the past, we look back into this old paradigm, we see how we could have potentially become repressed or oppressed and trampled upon by the old way, by the dog-eat-dog world, all right? And what happens is in this life, this gets retaught to us in early childhood. All right, our old karma gets replayed for us early on in this life. That way we start off where we last left off. So we look back into those wounds. We look how we've been oppressed into becoming something that we aren't actually, you know. So what this could be is like, yes, your dad, your, the authority figure, school, so many things shaped us into being something that we actually aren't. We got hindered. Oh, you're being too crazy. You're being too weird. You're being too girly. That's a big one for men. You're being too girly, you're being too feminine. Therefore, we shut off a part of ourselves that is our own feminine nature. And this is what Black Moon Lilith in the chart reveals. And once we embody that part of ourselves, we go back into the past and we heal and we reintegrate that back into ourselves. That becomes a place of incredible power. That is where we've already gone through the entire cycle. We got trampled upon. We thought that that wasn't us, and it is us. And that is our power, and that is our truth. I also place great emphasis in chart readings on 4 other asteroids. The asteroid Ceres, Vesta, Pallas Athena, and Juno. And all 4 of these asteroids have to do with the returning of the divine feminine principle. They have to do with us reintegrating our own divine feminine, how we nurture one another's, how we interact in relationship, how we act in a pure and selfless manner that is again tied to us finding this place of personal fulfillment and peace and serenity. And also our own genius and our own brilliance that is also tied in with the divine feminine. It's, the old paradigm with highly rational and objective and scientific way of ruling intelligence has actually separated ourselves from the feminine intelligence, and there is all this feminine intelligence. There is intuition, there is sensitivity, okay? All of this stuff that we've sort of been conditioned in the past to believe that it's worthless is actually worth so much we can hardly even comprehend it right now. We are just beginning to implement this divine feminine principle back into the collective consciousness. So a big part of my personal astrology readings is looking how we are personally and individually incorporating the divine feminine back into our lives. Each of us has our own unique story of how this divine feminine has been trampled, of how we've kind of been oppressed. We've gone through the dark ages. I mean, we look at past lives in these readings, and when people do a reading, I have them fill out a survey, and I will ask you if you believe in reincarnation or not. If you do not believe in reincarnation, we can still talk about all the same things. I will phrase it differently though. This video, I'm spilling the beans on myself in my chart reading, so I'm saying, yeah, we look at past lives. But of course, there are different ways. We can just say we're looking purely at childhood. We're looking at the events that happened then. The reason I like to incorporate past lives is because it brings to the table a whole new depth of things. We're not just looking at this little, age 0 to 50 time span. We are already starting to reintegrate how deep and how powerful and how much more far out and inconceivable our own true spiritual nature is, okay? and I do soul level astrology. That means we are healing your soul. We're getting you back into your soul potential, which is always some form of selfless service that we're rendering out to other people. When we find out what our soul potential is, when we get into our soul potential, we just want to give and give and give and love and love and love. That is who we are at our soul potential, okay? So that's what we are working at getting back towards in my readings, okay? So I did want to make this video to sort of, present the depth and my unique flavor and way of viewing all these things. That way we can understand, that is the stuff I like to focus on in my readings. Some people want to know how many children they're going to have when they get pregnant, what time they're going to find their next boyfriend and what location and everything. And I'm just simply not the astrologer to address those questions. There's nothing wrong with those questions. You just need to consult another astrologer. I do soul level astrological work. We're looking at you. We're looking at your full story that goes very, very deep, and we are learning to love it. We're learning to embody all of ourselves, all of these different sub-personalities into a brand new whole that is who you actually are. I mean, what everybody usually says after they get a chart reading done is that it's awesome because it's just reaffirming me in what I already know. I mean, this stuff usually doesn't throw out too many curveballs. We can always feel all this stuff, even when it's unconscious to us or subconscious to us. We already feel it in the corners of our vision, in the corners of our awareness. So the purpose of an astrology reading is to bring those things all into our awareness, to shed light on it all, so we can see everything as it is and then bring it together in a new light, okay? That we can get into being newly reaffirmed, so we can have newfound dedication and sincerity and rejuvenation and desire to be who we truly always are.